Hi, my name is Alexandra, and we're doing Ancestral Conversations. Today I'm talking with Chetna Lawless, who is the co founder of the Laughing Rainbow Mystery School in 1987. And Chetna is also a shamanic practitioner and teacher and a family constellations facilitator. And I'm very pleased to welcome Chetna into this space, into this conversation. Thank you so much for making time to do this with us. Thank you, Chetna.
Thank you, Alex, for inviting me to talk about the things that we love to do. So,
Thank you. So I'm going to jump straight into it. The first question is, what what are ancestors? What do you understand when I say ancestors or you say ancestors? What does it mean for you?
so for me, the ancestors are, of course, my bloodline. The bloodline, all of us, our parents, parents, the grandparents, and so forth. I also experience the ancestors as the spirits of place wherever I'm living. So the ancestors are the ones who lived wherever we are previous to us being here. And they leave like an imprint and they leave energy in the land. So, and they had a connection, a relationship with it. So the spirits of place as well as the people who lived there. So there's a continuing relationship with the spirit of place. So I consider the spirit of place ancestral as well, which is not exactly human. Right, so it could be nature spirits. Then I also feel that ancestors are people where we have like a spiritual or a cultural affiliation with. So ancestors can be like I experience past lives. Some people don't believe in past lives, but it can be for me an ancestral place, or the ancestors can be lineages from past lives. So I might have been born into a different culture. I have a very strong relationship with Japan, for example. So I feel like my ancestry or ancestors are also this Japanese lineage. Ancestors also can be, I believe we are not only just from Earth. So sometimes I feel connections to other dimensions and other realms, especially from the shamanic non-ordinary realities. And so I'm aware of lineages that we've lived and incarnated, like this isn't the only planet that we're on. And so ancestors are quite a vast collection of beings for me. But I also feel each one of us has a unique constellation of ancestors. So I call in that. And the colors I work with are like these multi-dimensional beings and frequencies of energy, and I feel they're ancestral, so that I've spent certain amounts of time, like on my Sphinx rays. Those are ancestral rays for me. It's a place where I've been a lot. It's a place I came here to transmit things. So those are that's me bringing through the ancestral lineage for healing, ones, the compassionate ones who've come here to serve. So it's quite a cosmology. But yeah, there's a lot of ancestors for me, and a lot of different kinds of ancestors beyond the bloodline.
Thank you, Chetna. Well, it makes sense to me in so many ways, because even taken chronologically, before humans, the ancestors before the humans who gave to humans life will be the nature and the nature spirits, and then before even that, there would be the stars and everything else that came before our planet came. So in that way, I can completely see how all of that is our ancestors, directly or indirectly. Thank you for this perspective, for this opening of the container of the ancestors. And I'm also wondering, when you talk about, I don't know whether you talk about, but when you talk about ancestral work and that you're doing ancestral work, or maybe when somebody else talks about ancestral work, what does that mean? What would you understand with those words, ancestral work?
So for me, what I understand an experience with ancestral work is that we are carrying gifts, and sometimes we're carrying liabilities. So wherever they are sourced from. So sometimes I feel that the gifts of the ancestors, are coming through our bloodline, but sometimes the gifts are coming from beyond our bloodline. So it's about accessing and owning all those positive energies that are coming through. And in terms of liabilities, it's often, in our bloodline, what our ancestors suffered, all the challenges they overcame, but sometimes the conditionings that are passed through. And sometimes those conditionings are not just from our ancestors. Sometimes it's from us, from past lives, cleaning up messes and stories that have happened, or just with consciousness and awareness, transforming limitation. So patterns that either we inherited from our own lineage, or from things we're working out from our own past lives. So when I think about the healing of the ancestors, sometimes it's about what's embedded in the land. There could be trauma in the land, so we need to release the trauma, or working with the energies or the consciousness present in the land to release it. So working ancestrally, working with the ancestors can be, listening to who's asking or what is asking for help. And we're all connected. And I very much love the description you were saying, how we embody different energies. And yes, everything, all the cells, all the atoms that make up our bodies, we're eating food that's grown from the earth, and everything was somewhere, and everything gets recycled, So like, we're carrying the memories in every single atom that composes our body from the food we ate. It was somewhere else. I think there's a great Shakespeare quote from Hamlet, where they talk about, how does a king get into the belly of a beggar? And they were talking about how, like, the body decomposed, goes into the earth, the worms ate it, and then, etc. Then the worms made the castings, and then we eat food grown from that soil. So we're eating the ancestors, this kind of whole cycle of life. So it's sort of, we're carrying memories, not just from us, but from everything that is in our body is made out of. And so it's working with whatever presents. And we're not in control of that. So I'm not controlling exactly, but when it presents, it's having enough of a context and framework to actually hold it, so that it can be released, whatever's calling to be released. Does that make sense? I don't know. I hope I answered your question. In a roundabout way, I think we got there.
Thank you. Yes, in many ways, I think you've answered the question. And your answer made me think of another question, and it is whether this work is for anyone, or do you need to have special training, special skills? Because you mentioned transforming the limitations and the gifts and the liabilities, and I can imagine how the gifts are probably easier to connect with, but does the further kind of deeper work of transformation need some special something for people to access?
I feel like there's a certain quality of listening, and in our present culture, people don't listen to themselves. We're overstimulated on the outside, so we're listening to a lot of noise, but we're not listening. Like, the bird is right there. We're not listening to, like, from a deeper place inside of ourselves. And that's the quality that's needed, I think, to drop into this work, is that you have to listen to the inner layers. But everyone can do it, and it's our birthright. So I feel that, well, the healing work, I observe that most people feel something's really wrong. I need an extra something more to support me in the process and to help move it through. So the particular ceremony with the constellations, people ask for that when they know that they're experiencing a lot of trauma in their line. They see patterns repeating, they've done therapy, they've done everything they could do, but it's not shifting. And so then they're like, I'll try anything. So even if people are a little bit scared and it's new for them, they're like, I heard about somebody who tried this and it shifted something for them. And then there's a willingness to open up, and mostly it unveils itself without, and no one's in control or making it happen. It happens sort of spontaneously, and people can feel the truth of it resonating inside, and the release happens with the witnessing of the energy unraveling. So it's really for everyone. It's just a question of them feeling that inner call and knowing. And people usually know from inside, even if they think intellectually, I don't really know if this makes sense to me. I don't even know if I believe in this, but I know I have to do this. And so they get like an inner pulling that calls them forward. So I think most people feel called if they're meant to come. And then if they're not feeling the call, they're probably not very open to it anyway. So it might take time. I mean, I've had people say to me, "Oh, I heard about this 8 years ago. You were doing this, but I wasn't ready then, but now I'm ready." And it'll happen in the right time for people. If they're not ready, they're not ready, and it might take 8 years for them to relax into accepting how these invisible forces are moving. And and even if they don't believe in it, even afterwards, people say, I don't even know if I believe in this, but I know it's changed something in my life and it's having an impact. So even non-believers, it can work for them too. It's kind of amazing to see it. And what I find people feel most excited about is that, they don't have to involve their family members. They can be having a terrible time in the connection with others. Like, been talking to some colleagues, and they're saying how their sisters and brothers can't agree about care for their parents in their elder years, and it's a terrible mess. And then they do this work, and then it's like peace and some resolution comes, and the siblings don't know about it, but then now everyone's getting on. So it's nice that people can do something to support their family without actually having to take them into like a therapeutic situation and involve them. They're taking responsibility. And people ask me about the ethics of that, and I say, well, it's like you're part of a body. Like the heart is connected to the liver and kidneys, and if the heart's out of balance and it wants to neutralize whatever's happening in the kidneys or the liver, then we have permission to support the heart, even if it is going to affect the liver and the kidneys. And it's all one system. So you can help your family without actually, involving them. And you have permission because you're part of the system. You have permission to heal the system that you're a part of. So it's quite interesting to see the impact of that. Sometimes people can't believe, oh, I can do this ceremony and I don't have to involve the others, and it works. So
Absolutely, thank you. You're touching on my next question that I was going to ask around the benefits of this work, and also you mentioned something that I thought maybe you could unpack a little bit more, because you mentioned something about being scared to do this work. So I just wanted to ask you whether what are the benefits? This is one part of the question, and why would anyone do it? And the other part of the question is whether there are any side effects. What would people be afraid of? Is there something to be afraid of? What could be the reservation of, oh, maybe this is not for me?
Well, I think people are afraid of something they can't physically see. And emotions in general. People are scared of emotions and emotional release. We all hold certain patterns and habits in our body and our mind. And when those structures start to open and loosen, it can be really scary. So people who are not used to therapy or looking at themselves or doing self-reflection or looking at the patterns, people are pretty aware when it hurts, and it's the same thing happening again and again, and how hurtful it is. But to take your power back and say, I don't have to be stuck in this endless loop, repeating the pain and these old stories, and then to take the power back and shift it. It's sometimes frightening for people to stand in their power. And it's all subconscious. Consciously, people would say, well, I'm not frightened of standing in my power. But actually, in reality, they know the status quo, what they're used to, is going to shift. So that can be very frightening. Even if they're not conscious of that being frightening, it is what's actually scaring them. And the other thing, it's like being out of control. The thing when we place and we do these ceremonies, no one is in control. we're letting what is actually happening reveal itself. And we're like with childlike wonder, just looking and seeing what is actually happening. And we're there with the awesomeness, the beauty of that unraveling. We're not orchestrating it. We're not making it happening. We're not acting roles. There's no drama. This is just tenderly seeing and unpicking what's there. And for some people, they know something ugly is going to show itself, or they're scared something really ugly is going to show itself and they don't want to actually see it. But the vulnerability is there. And that's what's amazing, when we can allow everyone to be vulnerable, and then what the source point of the pain is revealed, and then compassion flows in. So sometimes I think people are scared of the actual healing or the actual compassion, or they're scared the compassion won't come. Or if they've always hated this grandfather, they want to continue to hate him. They don't want to actually feel compassion for how tortured a soul he was, and understanding. So I think the resistance can be there, that also if there's, someone is a perpetrator and a victim, you don't want to feel forgiveness for the perpetrator or totally understand. But this pattern will repeat in the line and go down to the descendants if we don't. So everyone is deserving understanding. So it's bringing in understanding. People feel good when they do it. They feel release. Also, it's the emotions. A lot of people don't want to feel the emotions. The emotions can be tiring. The emotions can be just too strong. As the pain leaves us, there's no spiritual bypass on this one. You actually go through it. You don't gonna go around it or just intellectualize it. It's actually experienced, and it's cleansing. So sometimes that can really be overwhelming for people. They don't necessarily want to feel that, but the power of that is just huge, because all that energy gets redirected. It's not held bound in that wound anymore, and then it can move out and be creative. So accessing and then owning all that creative force. What are you going to do now with all that life force now that you've got it return? That's the challenge. It's like, wow, it's not stuck in that pattern anymore. So am I going to make another horrible pattern, or am I going to make something really beautiful with this energy? Now I can redirect it, do anything with I want. The compulsion to repeat the old story is gone. So now you have to make new stories. And then for some people, that's scary. Wow, I'm free. What do I do with my freedom? But no, it's mostly when people are ready, they jump and they want it. They want it. They're really hungry for it, and they do it. So no, I think, yeah, I can't think of a good reason not to do it, to tell you the truth. I can't, but there are a lot of bad reasons not to do it. It's worse to feel bound by the pain and old histories than to be freed from it.
So where does one begin, Chetna? What is maybe there is a step that you would recommend to do to begin with. Maybe there is a little ritual that and can suggest that if anyone who's never done anything like that would like to explore and start connecting with it, what is a good way to begin?
I would begin with dreams. I would begin with, before I go to sleep at night, I would ask for a dream from the ancestors to help me understand the challenges they had to overcome. What was the most difficult thing for them, and how I can honor them and honor what they overcame. Because feeling gratitude for our lives, we are carrying in our blood, in our DNA, all the stories of the ancestors. So all of their stories reside inside of us, and everything we're doing now, we've gotten all our strengths and gifts from them. We've earned the benefit from all the challenges they've surmounted. So I would ask them, show me maybe the gifts I've gotten from you. And we have 4 grandparents, so maybe one night I would ask my father's mother, then I'd ask my mother's mother, then I'd ask my mother's father and my father's father. I would take a different night, and I'd wait until I got a dream from them, or an understanding that of what happened to them and the gifts that I've received from them. Or if I did classical shamanic journeying, I journey and talk to them. But if you didn't do that and you were just very beginning, I would say ask for a dream to understand better the ancestral stories that, you know, you're carrying, the triumphs and the tragedies, you know, maybe one night for each if it's too complicated for you, but just ask for healing stories, ask them to talk to you, ask them to connect with you and tell you what you need to know now to help you move forward in your life and begin a dialogue. Just because they're not physically present doesn't mean they're not with us. And it may even be that it erupts from your own inner knowing because their memories are in your blood, but you might actually have a dream where you're connecting with an ancestral energy. And through a dream, it might feel safer than if you were to, you know, first encounter it in a ceremony. So I would start with dream work and asking questions and do the same question each night until you feel like you've gotten the answer, you know, and then change the question the next night. You know, the dreams are wonderful. And, you know, even daydreaming, you know, if you're not a dreamer, some people say, I don't remember my dreams. If you don't remember your dreams, just relax and daydream, meditate, and put forth the question of meditation and wait till you just, an understanding will come to you, you know, and then go with it, even if it feels imaginal, and keep a journal, write down the information or impressions you have, or ask your parents that are alive, or if you're lucky enough to have grandparents that are living, ask them about their lives, ask questions, ask them about their parents, and, you know, ask the oldest living generation what it was like for their parents and their memories. To get family histories down and see who lived where and how they traveled and what they went through, and, you know, just different things. So
And then what do I do with all this information? So two questions. I have so many questions as you're talking. So one question is, so if I have grandparents alive, I can collect all this information. Then what do I do with that? And the other question is, what if I have nobody? What if even that I don't know where I come from, like, you know, in the examples of adopted, you know, people.
You can still dream if you're adopted. I think it's a really interesting interesting path to dream through. I mean, nowadays they have the DNA test kits, so I think if I were adopted, I might get my blood tested to see which ancestors come from where and what happens, you know. And it is interesting to feel into that. I mean, not that it will give you all the answers, but to feel culturally. You know, I did one of those and I found out, I always thought my family was Italian, and I found out like I'm 30% Greek and a lot from Turkey and Syria, and Iran, Iraq, and North Africa, which I hadn't expected. You know, I was told I was Italian, but actually it's really, you know, North African and Asian a lot. And my great grandparents were adopted, both of them. So now, you know, I know that's my lineage, and I've always felt an affinity with that area, the music, the food, the culture. When I arrived in Greece, my body felt like I'm home. You know, now it all makes sense to me finding out later. So there's things we can do, very practical things you can do to kind of, but the initial experiences I had were way before I had the blood test thing that showed that. So you can collect those stories, and I would say, like, spend time with the imaginal realms, feeling into, you know, these histories of your parents, and then seek to honor them some way. See how it's impacting in your life, and find out about your own patterns and habits, the foods you're drawn to. And when you eat, thank the ancestors. They're actually eating through you. So feel like, we like this food, I'm enjoying this food, and maybe because you made this a lot, like this is something that I share with you. You know, invite them to eat with you when you're eating. And you know, I think even just doing the history of food is fascinating. Like, that is a wonderful ancestral celebration. Make an ancestral feast. You know, feel that connection and love that they have for us, because now that they're disembodied, you know, they're looking at our life with love, and call them in and ask them to support and help you, even if you don't know who they are. So like if I was adopted, I think I would just tune in and like really go into my heart, go into my blood, go in and ask my blood to reveal to me what I need to know, and then follow those impulses and urges and cravings in a way, and curiosities, and explore them and celebrate the parts of ourselves. You know, I think we all are so focused on work a lot and survival that we don't celebrate a lot. And I think one of the most fascinating parts of working with ancestors is learning about how they celebrated. How did my people party? What was fun for them? How can I bring more joy and celebration into my life? And like, have fun with your ancestors, eat with them, drink with them, you know, not necessarily alcohol, but you know, the zest for life, the joy of life, the plants. Like, I'm in this garden now, and a lot of it I planted with my father. It was like my father's line loved, you know, planting gardens in their spare time. They wanted to grow their food. They wanted to, it was a relaxation, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. And this connection of sticking your hands in the soil and growing something was so important. And I feel incomplete if I'm not doing that. So that's like another thing, is recognizing what makes you feel whole. And I think the ancestors are they're sitting on our backs and we're not aware of it. And they're trying to say to us, give us clues all the time. So follow those impulses that maybe don't make sense, you know, even to a highly industrialized, sophisticated person. You know, it's like living in an urban life. It's like, if it's telling you go for a walk, like watch the trees, it's your ancestors trying to help you connect to nature and connect to life in the way that they did. They had a simpler life than we did, and there are many joys. I think they can help us to be more joyful. So I would look to that. And yeah, through dreams, through food, I think it's a wonderful way. There's a lot of different, each family line is so different, so there would be different things, you know, that draw people. Some people are very like engineering and mechanically, they might want to build. Someone might feel a compulsion, I need to build a shed, or I need to make something, or, you know, there's different lineages. Some people are makers, some people are like love the cooking, other people love the gardening. You know, we all have things in our line, and our hobbies are where I think the ancestors reveal themselves a lot. So I would say explore your hobbies and invite them to come in and be with you. So, you know, there's so much joy there and so much potential, not just for looking at problems and healing our problems, but how do we experience the joy of life? You know, what's really bringing that fullness and that well-roundedness to us? You know, I think they have a lot to help us remember how to be humans, you know, instead of, you know, just, you know, in our high-tech lives. I think we've gotten very disconnected from what the earth has
Yeah.
to give us, and the elements and nature.
You also mentioned at some point the healing story, and I was wondering whether you could say a bit more about that. What is that, and how can we make, you know, how can we make it? How can we hear it? Or
For me, the healing story often is recognizing with gratitude what we have right now in our lives. You know, a lot of us have this feeling of, I would say, incompletion, or that there's something to achieve or do, and the ancestors overcame so much. I mean, life was a lot harder before. And I think it's recognizing that those healing stories of what they overcame. So I think a lot of us can look back even 2 generations, our grandparents' generation, and realize, you know, the suffering that they went through, the challenges, and the strengths. I mean, we wouldn't be here today to talk about it. We survived, and most of us are thriving. You know, a lot of people do still have challenges, but that strength of will and spirit to be here, to, you know, just to live. It sounds really simple, but actually it's not. You know, there are so many forces of degradation around us to bring us down or to diminish us. But actually the force that keeps us alive, keeps us connected, the joy, the love. I mean, love is the hugest, you know, force, the healing force. So looking at the story of love or looking how love was flowing through your family line, that despite all the challenges or obstacles, that thread of love, that connection that brought people together, they created families, they shared lives, how they connected with the larger communities, and the impact that people made in the web that they created in their life. Because our families aren't just the physical, biological families, but the intentional communities and friendships that people form. So honoring the love that has been in your line and looking for the stories of love, I would say follow that flow and see the love flowing in your own life, and feeling what makes you feel loving, what makes you feel that overwhelming, that you want to share, you want to move out, you want to connect, and that tribal feeling and community and interrelatedness. I think that's a lot about our survival too, depends on it. And, not just being isolated, but that connection and flow between us all in that web. So I would look for the love story, in the stories, and follow the threads of it. And also when it got broken, and seeing, honoring the breaks that happened, the bereavements and the grief too. And you only feel the grief because the love was there. If there wasn't this love, then you wouldn't feel that loss, wouldn't have been experienced as such, would have just been a disconnect, So oftentimes that grief is a love story, really. So.
Thank you, Chetna. This is such a beautiful illustration and the gift of the healing story, to look at the love story and to honor the places where it breaks as well. I'm just reflecting on what would be the best next question following that. And I'm wondering whether you could share a personal story of transformation that was connected with your ancestors or ancestral work.
Well, I did some ancestral work near San Francisco, at a colleague's home, and my father really lives on the East Coast and he wanted to be with me, so he came, and I said, "I'll place we'll do your constellation." And I discovered that my father, and I had not known this, but he had an older brother who died, who was like miscarried. And he said that he always felt that he had a brother that was like looking after him, who was like an angel, a guardian angel. And my dad's an only child, but apparently he's not an only child, because there was this one that came before him, and he had never really acknowledged the impact. And I feel like I feel a little tearful talking. I watched how much it affected my dad, to realize that he had an older brother who has been his guardian angel, that's been helping him his whole life. And to feel like my dad, who's always been an only child and felt very isolated in some ways. He's older, he's 85, and even his cousins, a lot of them have passed. He's one of the few left of his generation. And to see like the power that returned to him, realizing he could consciously acknowledge this invisible ancestral spirit who's always been with him, always been like a guardian angel, holding him through difficult times in his life. And to see my dad cry with like joy at seeing his brother, and to have somebody represent that, and him be able to hug the brother and to say, "I missed you, you didn't sort of make it, and here you are, and you've always been here." And I feel like my dad changed after that. I feel like he relaxed more and felt more happy, and I don't know, it just had a huge impact on the rest of us in my family, my sisters and I, to see that and to feel like his peace, making peace with something about being like an only child that hadn't happened before, and to see more love flow into his life, to see, him feeling more connected, and it's brought a lot of joy to all of us. And yeah, it's really beautiful. Yeah, it makes me happy to feel it. and to also know that he's more consciously connecting with his helping spirits and becoming, he's always been very spiritual, my father, but to feel like he's got a new buddy, and that's a really good feeling. Yeah.
Thank you. This is such a touching story, and how the ripple effect, how it touches the whole family, and I'm sure not only the next generations but also the previous generations. Um, and I wanted to ask something else, with regards to the constellation work and the shamanic work, because I've noticed that you also use the not the words but the examples. For example, I can recognize where they come from a constellation work and sometimes from shamanic work, and then you flow between the two very naturally and organically. So I'm wondering, in your experience, um, what is this combination of the constellation work and the shamanic work? Is it easy? Is it possible? Well, I know it's possible because because you're doing both. Um,
Yes.
but I was just wondering, what you can say about the two and the combination of the two.
Okay, that's a really good question. For me, I feel like when I'm doing the constellation work, I'm sort of doing a soul retrieval for the family line. So when we're doing shamanic healing work, we're looking at an individual and we're bringing back sometimes soul parts or doing extraction on the individual. But when I'm doing the constellation, I feel like there's a soul loss for the family group, and that something has been disconnected, and that essence is found and that essence is returned. And so I feel like on that shamanic level principle that we're reconnecting that what's just been unplugged or plugging it back in again. So then the juice is running through the whole family unit instead of that power being disconnected. I also feel like it's connected to me shamanically in the sense that how we carry burdens of ancestors. And a lot of people feel like, oh, I'm carrying this old story of my great aunt and this was her problem and I don't want it to be my problem. I feel like we're often holding soul parts that got passed forward. So for me, shamanically, in the constellation, we're taking the energy and we're giving the power and essence back to the person who lost it. So we're passing back. So some people feel, oh, this is wound or it's her junk and I don't want to carry her junk and this is disgusting. I said, no, this isn't junk. This is pure gold. It's just in the wrong place. It's not yours. So respect this energy. It's a gift. Give it back to the person who it belongs to and watch them light up and become one of those overflowing ancestors that's just pouring love down to you. People pass the buck on their problems. We all know that happens. So there are wounds that they can't bear, that then shove it down to the next generation. If the younger generations can look at these wounds and say, wow, this is a trauma that my grandfather had, and with love, grandfather, I'm giving you back your soul part, your essence, your energy. It's a wonderful thing. And you feel immediately when grandfather, who is in spirit, takes back what was he left. And he gets to finish his unfinished business. So there's also an element of like the psychopomp work that sometimes spirits are hovering on us and we're feeling these compulsions to do these weird things. It's because they're trying to finish their unfinished business. And if we allow them to complete it, then it releases them so they can move into a more peaceful realm in the invisible, where then they're becoming a helping ancestor instead of the wounded one who's just pulling you into some trauma. Resolve their trauma here, give them back their power and story, and then they can become an ally and give you amazing gifts, and not be pulling you out of whack that you feel like I'm like this compulsion to do these weird things that I don't really want to do, but I can't stop that compulsion, so give them back their gifts. So to me, the shamanic and the constellation work completely dovetail. I don't really see them as separate. And also what I find happens a lot when I'm doing that is if there are a lot of really wounded ancestors, I feel like helping allies will jump in So the color rays for me come in to support. I find one of the rays that works a lot is barbarous red, is particularly if there was a lot of physical abuse in a line. And barbarous red will stand behind the abuser, the person who is abusive, and rebalance their energy and help them be more conscious and integrate and empower them, just rebalance them and heal them in a way that miracles occur. It's just, I can't say it any other way. So I will bring in other allies and teachers and helping spirits. I don't just try to let the circuit figure, just only the family line figure it out. If a healing angel steps in and I'm seeing them come in, then I'm come in and do your job, It's great, so working shamanically and being open to the healing spirits as well as ancestors, then, it's a party. Let them come in and do their work and watch it unfold. Don't block it, don't get in the way, because sometimes it takes a lot more than what we have just within our line. So I won't stay just within the construct of this is the family and nothing external. I'll let the helping spirits come in. So there's lots of ways I draw upon. But I mean, as a child, I was seeing and hearing those things anyway. So I sort of was a foot in each world all the time. So I'm allowing what is for me normal, happen. I'm like following them, so.
Yes, so Chedna, because you've mentioned Barbarous Red and inviting colors into constellations as well as a resource, would you say a little bit more just to give it context? Because for somebody who've never heard of that as a concept or as a teaching, that this could be a little bit confusing. Just maybe in some way a short background to what does it mean when you bring colors in?
Okay, so the colors are healing spirits and allies that are in another level of reality, like they're the breakdown of the frequency of light. So we talk about becoming enlightened or light coming to help uplift us, and each color has a different frequency and story and energy and consciousness. They're frequencies of consciousness, or some people call them angels. So you might perceive them as an angel or angelic presence. They're not really human in form. They're divine healing presences, and they carry different codes and frequencies to help us become more conscious. So they're presences of light and consciousness that are here to help us become more aware and more joyful, more happy, more connected to our authentic self. So it's like listening from the inside and enlightening ourselves with its light, the breakdown of the frequency of light. So the different textures, messages, codes, content. I think I'm getting an image of, like, the fiber optics, we're sending data through these lines. It's like we are receiving codes and colors all the time, and energies that are invisible, frequencies like the infrared spectrum we can't see. These are colors that we don't physically necessarily see, but their presence is divine, loving, compassionate, wise, all-knowing. And I think the thing you talked about earlier, asking me about fear, a lot of people fear what they can't physically see. So the thing about the colors is we can't really see the presences of these colored rays necessarily, but you know that you're always held in the divine, and they're loving and compassionate, helping energies and consciousness. So there's a relaxation with the colors of knowing you can trust and relax because they're there to heal you. They don't have stories. They're not characters. They're not, humans with egos that have ulterior motives and plans or designs on us. They're just here to, like, lift, heal, make you more aware, bring you greater consciousness. So
Thank you. And as you mentioned in the beginning, I think you've named them as ancestors as well. So in some ways,
yes.
them being sort of here before us, making them ancestors.
Well, in the Bible, in the Bible, there's this story. It's like, in the beginning, there was light. You know, I think that's one of the initial stories. In the creation stories, it was just this realm of light, and then the waters came, you know. And I mean, they're metaphoric stories, I feel, in the Bible, but actually, that's the light. It was the light of oneness, and we're all composed of light. We're just differentiations of it. And all of us carry different codes of light and energies, and we're all a combination of lots of frequencies. I think Einstein said that we're just, you know, the frequencies of light, we're just a bit denser, you know, or in more condensed form. And it's the joy of life. It's really amazing. I mean, it's a miracle we're here at all, I feel like, embodied. And you know, we are light embodied. And yeah, I'm thinking of the Joni Mitchell song, you know, we are stardust, we are golden, you know. And we're trying to recreate the garden. And I think a lot of us came here. I mean, I know as a child, when I arrived, I was looking around thinking, people aren't getting on. People aren't being very nice to each other. This isn't what I remember. Why aren't people kind to each other? Like, what's happening? Wow, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. And I had this imprint, like a memory of like, hey, there's a nicer way to be. And so there was always this desire to restore the garden, you know, restore us into harmony. I mean, greater love. And it's happening. I think it's happening now. It's exciting time.
Great. Thank you, Chetna, so much. And just before we close, is there anything else that you would like to bring into this conversation, into this space here?
My neighbor's dog. Just you know, to enjoy your ancestors and work with them. And you know, as you heal them, you're healing yourself, you're healing the world. You know, and if you feel drawn to, you know, do some stuff with the colors, you know, we're doing some interesting things. You can come check it out. We have some sampler taster things for free that people can just enjoy. And you know, connecting with also, you know, your own history of your colors, your light, your ancestral lineage with color. You know, definitely, what's your favorite color? You know, that's a really leave people to think about. Thinking of color as healing your ancestors as well. You know, pick the color of your altar cloth, make an altar for your ancestors, you know, feed them with colors, you know, even if you're imagining it. And see the colors of your life, you know, enjoy the colors your ancestors. You might feel drawn to a certain color of water, or the sky being a certain color, or you want certain plants or flowers around, and trust that feeling. You know, I need the red rose, I want to see a pink flower right now. And bring color into your life. Feed your ancestors with colors. That's what I would say. Feed yourself with colors.
Thank you, Chetna. That immediately made me think of the colors that I would like to see right now. It's usually an array of greens, you know, the whole palette of greens. And it also brought me back to this exploration that I'm now doing, that started recently, where I realized at some point that I don't know these simple things even about my parents and grandparents. So now I'm on a journey of asking my parents specifically about, what is your favorite color? What is your favorite flower? What is your favorite song? What is your favorite movie? What is your favorite dance? You know, and then trying to find these things about my grandparents as well, and my possibly, if possible, great grandparents. So I've recently, by chance, was told what was my great grandmother's favorite perfume, and I even managed to Google it and find how it looked, you know. And so this little bits that I've never thought about before, but they just create this sense of completeness of the space behind me, you know, of all those lives that made me possible. And kind of knowing those little details make them even more solid, even more grounded and supportive in some ways. So thank you for mentioning the colors. Yes, this is one of these dimensions of what is your favorite color. Yeah. Great. Thank you so much, Chetna, for your time. And thank you for being with us today and for sharing your wisdom and for sharing your lightness and your laughter and the creativity of working with colors, of working with ancestors and, you know, with the history of the food and all the precious details that you've brought here. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. Always. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I'm hoping to speak to you again at some point. And also, I'm hoping to bring more of these conversations to whoever is willing to watch them and learn from them. So until next time, thank you.
You're welcome. Pleasure. Take care.